Kakadosh Boker Or, Masechet Shevuot Daf Yomi Daf, Tedvav Amud Aleph 15a1. We're just starting on 14b, the two lines from the bottom. There's Nekudotain, there's two dots. The two dots says, we are talking about right now when the Kohen comes inside of the Azara. We're talking about the Tosefet of the Azara. You remember we're talking about that when you add on to the Azara. So he said, right, how do we know that in order to come on the Yudalet Amubet, the last two lines, how do you know that when you're going to come, you're going to add on to the Azara, you have to do it in this fashion? You remember we said that you needed to have the king, you needed to have the Kohen Gadol, you needed to have the Sanhedrin, you needed to have Shirim, you needed to have the All Israel, you needed to have all these things. How do you know all these things? Yeah? So he comes and he says like this. Yeah? He comes and he says as follows. He says, Echad hanichnas le'azara, menan amile. Yeah, he comes and he says this. How do we know these words? Sha'amar Rav Shimi bar Chia, says Rav Shimi bar Chia, Adamar Kad, says in the pasuk, Kechol asher ani mareh otecha et tavnit hamishkan ve'et tavnit kol kelav. Just like I'm going to show you the tavnit hamishkan, the way of the mishkan, the fashion of the mishkan. How do you say tavnit in Hebrew, in English? Tavnit is when you make a tavnit, it's like a mold, a template. That's a better word. Template. Thank you. Yeah, right. So he says, Tavnita Mishkan ve'tavnit kol kelav v'chen ta'asu, and that's what you're supposed to do. The fact that it says v'chen ta'asu means ledorot, meaning when they made the Mishkan, Moshe was the Melech and also the Navi. Aharon was the Kohen Gadol. Besides Aharon being the Kohen Gadol, yeah, you have the Urim v'Tumim. You have the Shivim Zekinim, meaning just like it was done then, it has to be done for generations. So Mativ Rava comes and he asks the following question. He says, all the utensils that Moses did. Yeah, you ever heard of Moses? All the utensils that Moshe Rabbeinu came and he did, Meshichatan mekadashtan, when they anointed them with the anointing oil, with the Shemen HaMishcha, it sanctified it. It made it holy. Mikam va'elach, and for then on, the generations when they're making new utensils, avodatan mechanachtan. The fact that you use them in the avodah, that is what makes it holy. So says the Gemara, why? Meaning like this. Why is it that if you wanted to add on to the Azara, you needed the king, the Navi, the Kohen Gadol, Shivim Zekenim? Why do you need all this? Now to do the Kelim, no. The Kelim, during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, used to anoint it, and then it used to become holy. But ever since Moshe Rabbeinu, now you just do the avodah. You do the avodah with the kelim, and the second that you do the avodah with the kelim, that's how it's going to be mechanech oto, right? And that's it, and you don't have to do anything else. So says the Gemara, Shane Hatam, it's different over there. The Amar Krada, the pasuk says vayimshahem vaykadesh otam. It says otam b'meshicha. Meaning, even though it says v'chen ta'asu, and I wanted to say v'chen ta'asu means it goes on ledorot. Ledorot means for generations, meaning gam la'atil avot kol ledorot v'dorot tzarich la'asot ze oto davar. Yeah, so you have to do the same thing. You need the kohen, the navi, the na. He says, it says vaykadesh v'mishachim vaykadesh otam b'meshicha v'lo ledorot. Meaning, only then and there do they have to use with meshicha. Afterwards, they don't need to do it with meshicha. Okay? Ema otam b'meshicha ledorot, or b'meshicha, or ba'avodah. He says, one second, why don't I just say that otam is b'meshicha, but ledorot, it's either or b'meshicha, or ba'avodah. Why don't I say that way? So Amar Papa says, the pasuk says, asher yisharetu vam b'kodesh. What is it asher yisharetu vam b'kodesh? Tilana katuv b'sherut. The Torah says, use it. Do sherut. Sherut means you're using it as avodah. The second you use it as avodah, that's it. So now that the Torah says that they have to actually serve it, they have to use it in the Beit HaMikdash, and now it becomes holy. Otam lamali. So why do I need otam? So you lo katav rachmana otam. If it wasn't written otam, avamina, I would have thought to say hani yud meshicha. Here it's going to be used with meshicha, right? Veledorot meshicha v'avodah. You need both. Taktiv, as it's written, v'chen ta'asu. Mi'et rachmana, that's why the Torah comes and it says, otam b'meshicha, v'lo lodoro b'meshicha. Meaning you needed the miut of otam, Because if you didn't have the mi'ut of otam, I would have thought that you needed both. You need also avodah and also meshicha. So that's why it says, because it says v'chen ta'asu. Chen ta'asu means you still need the meshicha, and then it says v'sharetu bahem. You also need sherut. So you need the sherut avodah, and you need also the meshicha. Kamashmalan otam is teaching you only those ones need meshicha and not ledorot. Ledorot you do avodah and sasufi. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to do also meshicha. Okay? So now the Gemara is going to come and going to start, right, the next part. Yeah, there's the two dots again. We got to the two dots. Bishte todot. Yeah, you have to come and you have to bring, right? You have to remember, in order to add on to the Azara, you need the king, Navi, Kohen Gadol, Shivim Zekenim. You need the Shte Alechem, the Shte Todot, right? You need two Todot. You need the Shirim, right? And then you need the Israelim going around. So he comes and he says this, Shte Todot, the two Korbanot. So he says, Tana, Shte Todot Shamru, Belachman, Velo Bifsaran. When it says Shte Todot, we're talking about the shtaim of the chalot todah, meaning we're talking about two breads, and not the basar of the korbanot. Meaning a todah, right? What is a todah? A thanksgiving offering, right? That's korban todah, thanking Hashem. The thanksgiving offering, which was given every single time that you want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yeah, it's a mistake. Some people think it's like Mother's Day. Some people think Mother's Day is once a year, right? Mother's Day is every single day of the year, right? And your mother-in-law's day is every single day, twice a day. Yeah. So therefore, yeah, Father's Day doesn't exist. Yeah. So therefore, what happens is that when you have here the Thanksgiving, you have to bring a korban, which is an animal. And besides bringing the animal, you have to bring 40 lachmet todah. You have to bring lechamim, right? Breads of the todah. 40, right? 10 which are chametz, and 30 which are different types of matzot. Yeah, only 10 out of the 40 are chametz. Okay, so now it says over here, when we say that you have to bring two todot, right? We're talking about only the breads, the two of the chalot of the todah, which are brought with the korban, but not the actual korban itself. How do we know these words? So says the Gemara, Marav Chasta, says the Chasta, it says the pasuk. It says when we're talking about that they were coming back from Bavel, right? And Nehemiah and Ezra Sofer came and they wanted to sanctify the city. They went betalucha after the Todot, just like it's brought down Nehemiah. And there, right, they went Letzad Yamin. My Gedolot. What does it mean? Va'amida shte Todot Gedolot. What is Gedolot? So Ilema, if you're going to tell me now that when it says Gedolot, we're talking about the actual animal, Mimin Gadol Mamash. So name a parim. Just say a par. Say a bull. A bull's a big animal. So he says, Ela Gedolot Beminan. We're talking about Gedolot of that species. So what does that mean? So it says, Mika Chashivuta Kameshmaya. He says, what? There's such a thing as a Korban Gadol, which is more Chashuv in front of Hashem. But now we learned in the Mishnah, Ne'emar be'olat be'ema yishereach nichuach, ve'ne'emar be'olat ha'of yishereach nichuach. Right? And it says also by Mincha yishereach nichuach. What does that mean? You have here the animal, you have the bird offering, and then you have a Korban Mincha. And by all of them, it's written Ishe Reach Nichuach, that the fire in itself is a pleasant fragrance in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he says, what does that melamed? She'echad ha'marbeh ve'echad ha'mamit uvilvad she'chaven libo l'shamayim. What does that mean? Right? Laviv shebashamayim. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not looking, it's not a numbers game. It's not numbers. Some people think you need numbers. It's not a numbers game. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want numbers. He wants quality. He wants the best. He wants your best. So therefore he says, it doesn't matter if you're going to give a lot or give a little, right? You've got a poor person that he gave birds, right? Or you got even a poor person, he gave a korban mincha, whatever it is. It's Isherach Nichuach Hashem. That for sure is a pleasant fragrance in Hashem. So don't tell me that when it says Gedolot, it means Gadol, huge. Because for Hashem, that doesn't, yes, it doesn't apply to him. He's not going to pay attention to that. Yeah? So he says, Ella Barada, Gedolah Shebatodah. We're talking about, when it's talking about Gedolot, we're talking about the chelik of the Korban. We're not talking about the type of the Korban, which means in the animal or birds or mincha. We're talking about the chelik of the Korban, which is Gedolah Shebatodah. Umay nihu. What is that? The chametz. Meaning, when they had the 40 loaves, what was the biggest of the loaves? The chametz. The chametz, obviously the chametz rises, correct? So therefore it's going to be the biggest. So for when it says gedolah, gedolah refers to the chametz of the korban todah. So that's what we're referring to. So he comes and he says, yeah, the Tran, as we learned in the Mishnah, התודה הייתה באה מן 5 שאים ירושלמיות, שהן 6 מדבריות, שהן 2 אפות, והיפה 3 שאים, ל-20 מסרון. Yeah, so he comes and he says this. We learned in the Mishnah that the Korban Todah was brought from 5 se'ah of kemach, right? Remember that a se'ah is a measurement of volume. So a 5 se'ah of kemach, but the kemach was made out of Yerushalmiot, which means that the 5 se'in of kemach Yerushalmi was like 6 se'in of midbariyot. You know how it is that sometimes you have ounces of UK and ounces of US, and they're different ounces. It's not the exact same. You've never seen a baby bottle. On a baby bottle, you'll come and you'll see there's ounces OZ of UK and US. It's not the exact same. Again, we're not talking about huge differences, but it's not the exact same. So the same thing. Here you have, right? Here you have something which is basically that there's kemach, there's a se'ah of what? Yeah. The how do you call this? Here it says you have 5 se'in of kemach Yerushalmiot, which is 6 se'in midbariyot, which is 2 efot, 2 efa, which the efa is 3 se'in midbariyot. So therefore, it's going to be 20 isaron. Okay, isaron. Ve'omer asirita efahi. So he says over here like this: asara lechametz, v'asara lemasa. Are you listening? Yeah, you have 10 of chametz and 10 for matzah. Now, in the matzah, you have 3 different types. You had chalot, rekivin, and revucha. Yeah? Which one? They made them. They used to make it. Yeah. Yes, 100%. There was a bakery. What do you think? Hey, they needed Baba Hakis in the Bet HaMikdash. They needed bakeries. Right? But they were Kohanim. Baba Haki is disqualified. Huh? No. We're talking about in the Bet HaMikdash. We're talking about in the Mishkan, Bet HaMikdash. We're not talking about on a trip. On your trip, you could do whatever you want. You take your own provisions. Right? We're talking about in the Bet HaMikdash. Right? In the Bet HaMikdash, the Kohanim, they were bakers. So if everyone just paid attention, what we just said was, right, the following incredible yisod. You had the same amount of flour for the 30 loaves as the same amount of flour for the 10 loaves. So therefore, obviously, but now this one of 30 loaves was divided by 30. This one is divided by 10. So obviously the ones of chametz are huge in comparison to the ones of the matzah. Because the matzah was the 3 different types of matzah. So therefore that's what we just said. In the Bet HaMikdash, at a certain place. Amar Rami Bar Chama. Says Rami Bar Chama. En azara mikadeshet el shiurei mincha. The azara is only going to be mikadeshet with the shiurei mincha. Shiurei mincha is the leftovers of the comments of the mincha. My time, what's reasoning? Birushalayim, Kirushalayim, just like Kirushalayim, davar nechal b'mekadsha, which is lachmet todah, which that's what's going to make it holy. So to the azara, davar nechal b'mekadsha. So ask the Gemara, atu lachmet todah b'azara milo mitachle. He says what? Lachmet todah is not going to be eaten in the azara. He says the Kohanim could eat them in the azara if they wanted to. So he says ela, but rather like Yerushalayim. Just like Yerushalayim, davar nechal b'mimena nifsal, which means if it goes out of it, it's going to be nifsal, right? And therefore, todah v'lachman nechalim b'chol ha'id, right? You could eat it anywhere in the city, right? And therefore, he says v'lachen Yerushalayim mitkadesh b'lachmet todah. So to the azara has to be davar nechal ba v'yotzei mimena nifsal. So therefore, it has to be a mincha because the mincha has to be eaten in the azara, and if it went out of the azara, it becomes pasul. So ask the Gemara, imala alan chametz afkan chametz. He says 1 second. If by the kiddush of the chalot of the chametz todah, it's chametz. So to the kiddush azara should be done with minchat chametz, not mincha of matzah. Meaning the majority of all the korbanot in the Bet HaMikdash were all matzah. They were not chametz. We had shtei alechem of Shevuot, right? We had the korban todah, but it's not that common. The majority, right? The majority was all matzah, even lechem hapanim. Yeah, it was all matzah. It was not, there were different forms of matzah. There were different forms of matzah, but not lechem chametz, right? Not the actual chametz. So therefore here, what we're asking is, why exactly is it going to be, right? That if you're going to tell me that over there it has to be something that if you take it outside, it's going to become disqualified. Korban Todah, all the lachmet Todah have to be eaten inside of Jerusalem. If you take it outside of Jerusalem, it's not going to be disqualified. So the same thing, the azara has to be something that you cannot take out of the azara. And if you took it out of the azara, it's going to become disqualified. So what's that? You're allowed to take out the korban to the outside. So it has to be the korban mincha, the mincha what we just brought down here, right? Shiure mincha. Now the shiure mincha has to be done inside. So we asked. So just like the korban todah was the chametz of it, so to this should be the chametz of it. So says the Gemara, v'tizbera minchat chametz miika. There's no such thing as minchat chametz, meaning any flour offering that you bring, any korban mincha, was never chametz. It was always matzah. There was no such thing as a korban mincha, which was chametz. Tedvav amud bet, 15b. V'chitem, whenever you're going to tell me, temach mitzlehu l'shirayim u'mikdash vehu. So make it chametz. Make it chametz, and after you come and you make it chametz, then you're going to be mekadesh oto. The active it's written, lo te'afeh chametz chelkam. The Amar Shakish says that Shakish, afilu chelkam lo te'afeh chametz. Don't even make their chelek of the kohanim, that's chelkam, into chametz, and therefore you cannot make the korban mincha into chametz. So alama lo, ask the Gemara, why not? If shar de mekadesh v'shtei alechem b'atzeret, do it on Shavuot. Shavuot you have shtei alechem, and there it is chametz. Right, that's one of the korbanot of chametz. So answers the Gemara, mishum du lo efshar, right? Because you can't do that. Why? Hechi navid. What are you going to do? Nivnei emet mol. If it's going to be, you're going to build the tosefet of the mikdash yesterday, which is erev Yom Tov. V'nikadchem et mol, and then you're going to make it holy on erev Yom Tov. Shtei alechem b'shchitat kvasimu dekadshi. So he says they're going to be kadosh through the shchitat of shnei kivsei atzeret, which is also going to be brought on the atzeret. Right, so therefore, if you already want to be Mekadesh Azara with the Lechem of Erev Yom Tov, he says it's not going to be Chal, because then you have the Korbanot of the Yom Tov. And therefore, you have, right, the Shchitat Kvasimu de Kodshe. So he comes and he says, so therefore, it's not going to be Chal, because we already said that it could be Mekadesh only through a Korban, which becomes Pasul when you take it out of the Azara. And this Korban is not going to become Pasul unless it's going to be Kedushat Aguf. Shtei Lechem, even though it's like other Korbanot, which you buy from it and everything, nevertheless, it's only Kiddushat Damim, right? Or the Kiddushat Guf is only going to be on the Kivsei Atzeret, on the Kvasim of the Tzeret. So he says, Nivnei emet, build it yesterday, and then you're going to sanctify it today, right? So he says, Ba'inan Kiddush B'Shat Binyan. You have to sanctify the Azara at the time that you build it. I cannot come and build it today, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to sanctify it tomorrow or another week or another month. It has to be done the same day. So he says, Nivnei b'Yom Tov, build it on Yom Tov, and then you're going to sanctify it on Yom Tov. And binyan bet hamikdash, doche Yom Tov. We know that the binyan hamikdash never pushes off Yom Tov. That's why we say that you can't build the bet hamikdash on Yom Tov. Yeah, we spoke about it already. Yes. So nishbeka, he says levat arachim. So fine, leave the two lechems, right? Leave the lechem which was nitkadesh b'Yom Tov until afterwards, and then build it the day afterwards, which is Yom Chol and Mikache. If sila lebelina, it becomes pasul with leftovers. Remember, you're not allowed to have lina. You're not allowed to leave over. So for the same thing, you're not allowed to leave over these breads until the next day. So nivnei mimale yoma. He says if you're going to build it on erev Yom Tov and leave a little bit over, the ad de kadish yoma. So therefore, immediately once it's going to become nighttime, alta nigmade, you finish it and then you're nekadshe. So he says em binyan bet hamikdash balayla. You're not allowed to build the bet hamikdash at nighttime. The Rabbi says, "Minayin shebein minyan v'midash b'layla, shneimar u'v'yom hakim et hamishkan. V'yom mekimo, v'layla mekimo." Meaning, the only way to build the mikdash is during the daytime. You cannot build the bet hamikdash during the nighttime. Yeah. So even though if you look at the footnote, there's a beautiful Tosafot. That the Tosafot says that was only the previous bet hamikdash. The bet hamikdash shlishi can come during the nighttime because it's going to come down banui legamre b'dei shamayim. And therefore, it could come down even during the nighttime. So Bet HaMikdash Shlishi can come during the nighttime. The what? I just quoted to you at Tosfot.
No, it's not Tosfot. What do you mean?
The what? It's a Midrash Tanchuma. Midrash Tanchuma. Mikedash Adonai konu yadecha. So there it says that the third Bet HaMikdash is going to be, right, brought down. Midrash Tanchuma. Okay? So he said over here like this. It's also Rashi in Rosh Hashanah, Dibura Machil Nami, and Rashi in Sukkah, Emaleh Amudala, Dibura Machil Nami. Yeah, you have it. Rashi brings it down, but it's a midrash. Midrash means Tanaim. Tanaim already bring it from a pasuk. Okay, so he says Hilkach. Therefore, lo efshar. He says, right, it's not going to help, which means that there's no other way to lekadesh belechem chametz, and therefore you're going to do it with the shiurei mincha, which is actually matzah and not chametz. Fine, 2 dots. Uveshir. We're talking about now songs. You remember that in order to add on to the azarot, we needed songs as well. You can't just come and start. It's not just dry. You need to sing. You have to praise Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So it says it is. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in Braita. Shir shel Todah, where they used to say the shir of Todah. What's the shir of Todah? Mizmor Todah. Yeah, Mizmor Todah. So it says over here, Bekinorot u'binvalim tziltzalim, with different types of musical instruments, right? So he says, Al kol pina u'pina ve'al kol even gdola sh'Yerushalayim. They used to come and say, Aromincha Hashem kidi litani. Yeah, this is obviously Mizmor Shechem by David, right? So there's Perek Lamed, okay? The one that we say at the end of Hodu. V'shil shel pegaim. What shil shel pegaim? Yoshev Beseter Elyon, right? Because it's connected pegaim. That's what we say. It's always by the levayot, by the funerals. It's called shir shel pegaim, okay? V'yesh omrim, and some people say shir tzadik aleph. Yeah, also Motzei Shabbat. Yeah, and also some people say shir shel negaim. Okay, so he says over here negaim are machliot gafaniot. Okay, so it doesn't. Man da'amar negaim. Ichtiv, because it says v'nega lo yikra ba'olecha. Uman da'amar shir shel pegaim. Ichtiv v'ipol mitzidecha elef. It's the same perek of Tehillim, tzadik aleph. The only thing is it called shir shel negaim or shir shel pegaim? Okay, yeah, 2 different names. So he says v'omer, and it says Yoshev Besedu mitzvah shadai lunan. Ad ki ata Hashem machsi elyon samta monecha. That's what you say until Kriyat Shema Lamita. No, ad ki ata Hashem machsi. Vechozer v'omer, and then afterwards you come and you say mizmor leDavid v'lochot b'minei Shalom eno Hashem marabut tzarai until Hashem Yishol mecha b'chotech hasela. So that's what you're going to say. Now, since we already mentioned the Yoshev Beseter Elyon, we're going to mention it something else as well. Okay, so one more time. What do you say? You're going to say mizmor leTodah. You're going to be singing and all these things, and then you're going to mention Arumcha Hashem Kiditani, which is basically the Perek Tehillim of Perek Lamed, what we said at the end of Odu, and then you're going to say Shir Shel Pegaim or Shir Shel Negaim. Okay, now it says as follows: Yeshua ben Lewi Amar lehu lehani krai, right? So he used to say to these Shir Shel Pegaim vegane, and then he used to go to sleep. So that's why, by the way, in Kriyat Shema Lamita, you say this as well. You say the Shir Shel Pegaim, which is Yoshev Beseter Elyon, and then you're going to go to sleep. Hechi avidachi. Ask the Gemara, how do you do that? How are you going to come and say these divrei Torah and then go to sleep? Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, asur litrapot b'divrei Torah. Meaning, just like you're not going to come and you're not allowed to use Torah as a refuah, so too then the more so you shouldn't use the Torah as a haganah. Meaning, a person already got wounded. Can he come and start saying on the wound, you're not allowed to. Asur litrapot al divrei Torah. You're not allowed to come and to be mitrapa. Yes, you're not allowed to use psukim. I'll read to you Rambam. The Rambam says, halochesh alamaka. Somebody that's going to be lochesh alamaka. Vekore pasuk min Torah. Ela shehem bichlal hakofrim baTorah. They are kofer in the Torah. Shehen osim divrei Torah refuat aguf. Ve'en al refuat nefashot. The Torah is not a refuat aguf. It's a refuat on the nefesh. Right? And they're making a ki'ilu like a hocus pocus on refuat aguf. It's incorrect. So therefore, because of that, it's a surli trapot al divrei Torah. So he comes and he says, if right now I cannot come and I cannot be mitrapeh al divrei Torah, kal v'chomer, then I cannot do a ganal divrei Torah. This is a gana. This is protection. It's like I'm using it as a protective shield. Well, if you can't become a... Yeah. So he says, lehagen shane. He says it's different that when you want to come and you want to protect, protecting is mutar. Meaning you're allowed to say the psukim and everything is protection. That you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to use it as a refuah. Yes? Of course not. It says over here, right, that by the way, that if a person is healthy then, for sure he could say different psukim and everything in order for it to be a zechut for him to come and not to be sick. So that's for sure is going to be mutar. There's no questions whatsoever. So says the Gemara, ve'ela ki amar asur. When do we say that it's going to be asur? He says, de'ika makah, because there is going to be a makah. Aval de'ika makah asur vetulo. He says, 1 second. He says, if you're going to tell me that there's a makah, so then there's an isur. But he says, but now we learned. Right? This is actually a mishnah. A mishnah Masechet Sanhedrin. If somebody's going to be lochesh al makah and lochel kol ba, that's why I quoted you to the Rambam. The Rambam says mefurash that when a person's going to come and he's going to be lochesh al makah, he doesn't have a chelek l'olam ba. So says the Gemara, ha'it marala. So says on this mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan birokek shanu. Over there, you were rokek. What does that mean? You first spit, right, and then you come and you said, right, the pasuk. So he says, because it's a zilzul to mention Shem Shamayim when you spit. Meaning, when they used to do it, they used to spit on the makkah, right? You know, like the rock. By the way, the rock is actually how do you call it? Antiseptic. Yes, the rock is the phlegm, right? It's antiseptic, right? It actually has some curing powers. So he says, but you're not going to mention maskirin Shem Shamayim al harekika. So here actually gives a sikum. If you look in the footnote, it says the Rashba comes and he brings down the 3 different things. Lehagen, for protection. Sorry, before the makah is going to be mutar. Litrapot, which means that you're going to come and you're going to be lochesh al makah kayemet, is asur. Lirok velilchosh, to spit and then to say this pasuk, is asur. So there's 3 steps. There's either mutar, asur, or en lo chelek olam ba. Obviously it means asur also, but it's asur en lo chelek olam ba. So there's going to be 3 different steps. Obviously the Gemara continues from there. Says the Gemara. Then we said in the 2 dots, Bedin are going to go after, right? 1 minute. He says like this, Bedin, 1 second. He says Bedin, they're going to come and they're going to go around with the 2 dot after them. So says the Gemara, are you going to tell me the Bedin kame toda azli, that the Bedin are going to come and they're going before the toda? It's written, I mean, they have to walk behind it, not in front of it, because here it's mashma that the Bedin were going, and then afterwards was the toda. It says the opposite. He says the Bedin have to be behind, not in front. So says the Gemara, this is what it means to say. Bedin malchin u'shte todot malchot, Bedin acharehem. The Bedin they're going to be going, and the shte todot are going to be going. Bedin are going to go behind them. So Keitz and Malachot, how are they walking exactly? One of them says zo keneged zo, which means each one beside each other. One of them says zo achar zo, one behind each other. Right? So there's going to be a difference whether it's going to be. So you have the 2 kohanim which are carrying the chalot, and then you have the other kohanim which are going each beside each other. That's the first one, or one behind each other. So says the Gemara, man de amar, the man that says zo keneged zo, one beside each other. Pnimit hachtem ekar velachoma. He says this is the one which is closer to the wall, because according to them, each one was going outside of the walls of Jerusalem throughout the entire, or outside the walls of the Bet HaMikdash, outside the walls, zubitzadzo. So he comes and he says, V'man da'amar, so therefore you have the one which is pnimit and the one which is going to be the chitzonit, the outer way. He says, Man da'amar zo achazo, the one that says that it's one after another, the pnimit is hach demekar v'lebedin. So when it says now that the pnimit, that's the one which is closest to the bedin, because the chala which is actually carried right second, right, and then it was going to be beside the bedin, which they are the ones which are walking. So Tanan we learned hapnimit nechelet v'achitzonin nisefet, because we had a question. You have 2 loaves. Which one's the pnimit? Which one's the chitzonit? Right? Which one's the inner one and which one's the outer one? Now why? Because we already learned that the inner one is eaten. The outer one is going to be burnt. So we have to find out which one's which, and that's why the Gemara was just speaking about it. So Bishama, so it's good according to the Mandamar that says Zohar Zo, that it's going to be one after another. Amti lahachi, that's why Pnimit nechelet. So the Pnimit is going to be eaten. Mishum de'at yachitzona kama. Because the first one came and it sanctified it, kitchala. Meaning, since the outer one came first, so therefore, since the outer one came first, it sanctified it. So it came first. And then the back one was called the Pnimit. So now that it's sanctified, now you could actually come, you could eat it. But according to the Mandamar, that it's going to be one beside each other, zeh keneged zeh, not zeh achareh zeh. So he says, Tarvai, they both come at the same time. So why are you telling me one is chitzonit and one is pnimit? So says the Gemara, according to your reasoning, according to the Mandamar that says Zo achar zo, chada mi mekadsha. So he says, are you going to tell me now, right, that the one todah is going to be mekadesh? It's not enough. Hakol shelo na'asit bechol elu, right? Anything which is not going to be done in all of these things, Tanam, we learned. Fa'afilu lemandamar, and even according to the Mandamar, be'achat mikol elu, right? Which means, or the melech, or the kohen gadol, or the navi, or the sanhedrin. So he says, hani tarvayu chada mitzvahi. He says both of them are going to be a mitzvah. So he says, Ela amar Rabbi Yochanan, but rather Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, which means that they're both the same mitzvah, right? Both are one mitzvah, and therefore it's not enough in one of them by itself to come and to sanctify. Ela amar Rabbi Yochanan, but rather Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, Al pi navi nechelet, al pi navi nisrefet, which means the navi, which is the inner one, is going to come, and it's not meaning the navi told us that the inner one is going to be the one which is eaten, and the outer one is going to be the one which is going to be burnt, and therefore there's no reason for it. Meaning, bemet svarot, I don't have svarot. The Navi told us sometimes we don't have svarot for things. We don't have logic for things. It's just that this is what we were told, and that's what we have to do. So that's the reason why, right, we're doing all of these things.